You see it in the news and the movies, where a group of guys perform a robbery. Some with a gun, some at night, some dig a tunnel, and other types of robberies. And we saw the thieves themselves as well. Usually they're middle age or younger. But have you ever seen a group of thieves that are all old? Today, we want to tell you a story about 4 robbers that were all old. These men's ages were from 63 to 76 years old. And this wasn't just any robbery. They planned out to go to this bank and steal from the safety deposit boxes. This bank is in London, and inside the deposit box is filled with jewelry. These 4 old folks managed to do the biggest robbery in England's history. This robbery isn't that old either. It happened in 2015. The bank that has these deposit boxes has a really high security system, and all the deposit boxes are inside a vault itself. These 4 were old, but it wasn't the first time they were robbing places. These 4, since 2012, meaning 3 years before the robbery, were planning this whole thing out. After the robberies, the police found out that these guys are always buying drills and returning them because they were testing the drills on concrete and see how well they work. In the end, they settled with the Hilti DD350. This is a professional drill and it costs $6,500. In these 3 years, one of these guys was always looking at this bank and they were seeing who's coming, who's going, which employee comes at what time, when does a mailman come, when does he leave. He would watch it and write it down. These 4 old folks, after 3 years, decide it's time. They choose a holiday, meaning Easter, and they knew on this day nobody was gonna be in the bank. One of these guys had a box rented out, and one day before Easter, he goes there and hides underneath the stair. In April 2nd, 2015, it was Easter and the place was completely closed. But one of our friends was underneath the stair. He turns off the alarm on the emergency door and lets the other 3 in through that door. 4 people entered the bank that don't have masks, guns, or anything else. They just have a ginormous drill. The vault's wall thickness was about 50 centimeters. Then they put the drill to work. They put 3 holes next to each other so it's big enough so people can pass through it. They make a hole, and on the other side, there's a safety deposit box in the way. They manage to flip the cabinet and go inside. 2 of them go inside and 2 of them stand outside. The 2 that were inside went straight to work and emptied out any safety deposit box they opened. These 4 very easily emptied out the whole bank and went out from the same door. The next day, the employees go to work and notice that a robbery happened and call the cops immediately. When the police gets there, they see a mess. There's dust everywhere and 3 giant holes in the wall. And that giant drill is still sitting there. They couldn't figure out what door they used to get inside and leave. They try to investigate everything. These 4 went home and put all the money and jewelry inside the garage. And they were planning out how to sell the jewelry and get money. But these guys, because of their age, didn't know about new technology very much. They didn't know that there's cameras everywhere. And they also didn't know that their van was caught on camera with the plates. The cops found out who did it and noticed there were 4 of these guys behind everything. They also didn't know that the police can listen to their conversation on their cell phones. When the police checked their cell phone records, they noticed that they've been talking about this robbery for a very long time. They had no clue what technology is, and they didn't know that they could tap into their cell phone and listen to exactly what they're saying, because police can listen to your old conversation whenever they want. They did everything right, but they did it about 40 years too late, because they thought about everything except today's technology. They pretty much did everything old school. And even the French, when they reported this robbery, they said they were analog thieves in a digital world. The main guy was Brian Reeder, and he was 76 years old. The next guy was John Collins, and he was 75 years old. Third guy was Terry Perkins, and he was 67, and he died in prison. The youngest one was Daniel Jones, who was 63 years old at the time. Because of their age, the judge didn't go too hard on them and gave them 7 years in prison. As we said, this is UK's biggest robbery, and it's still the biggest robbery today, because they stole over $270 million. After getting arrested, the police found the jewelry and money, but $36 million worth of stuff was still missing. They say we don't have anything. 3 of them are still in prison because the 7 years hasn't ended yet, and 1 of them passed away. Probably those other 3 know where the 36 million is at. But the cops are smarter than that. When they get released from prison, until the end of their life, they'll be looked out for by the police. Anything they do or buy is obvious. This story was so interesting that they made a movie about it. The movie is called King of Thieves. This movie was released in 2018 and it's worth a watch.